having said that, the United States was really keen on Iraq winning. So the United States was giving it weapons, it was giving it missiles, it was giving it gas, sarin gas, VX gas, mustard gas. We gave them anthrax. We loaded the Iraqis up with basically every banned chemical weapon and biological weapon.
Let's go to the Iran-Iraq war. Like how devastating is that for both countries, and how does it begin, and how does it also set Iran on this course collision with the United States?
So, if Iran had if the Islamic Republic had a chance of, avoiding becoming a tyranny, it was in that moment. Reagan wants vengeance. He wants to destabilize Iran. He wants to ruin the Islamic Republic. He's a nationalist who's looking for a war. And he doesn't think he'll do a war with Iran. That's off the table. He knows, like the British did, Iran was too powerful. You don't want to start a war with Iran. The Iranian people are too nationalistic. They're too dedicated to their state. It'll be a nightmare. And we're coming off the Vietnam War. Reagan believed that the American public had an irrational hatred of war that the Vietnam War had created, and he calls it the Vietnam Syndrome. The Vietnam Syndrome, he thinks, can be cured if the United States can just simply win a war somewhere. But he's thinking proxy war is all you need. He doesn't need to win a direct war, at least in the case of Iran. So what he does is he gives Saddam Hussein, who by that point we had been courting. At one point we gave him a list of 800, the CIA gave him a list of 800 Iraqis that the CIA had deemed undesirable people. And Saddam Hussein had decided he didn't know what to do with the list. They didn't give him any instructions. They went, here's a list of people we don't like that live in your country. And he was like, you know what? I'm going to show the United States that I'm their guy and I can play their game. He mass arrested them. They were professors and engineers and MDs. He mass arrested them and did kangaroo courts where he'd have 30 defendants at a time, find them guilty, and mass executed them on TV, just hanged them. And of course, the CIA was like, this is our guy. We could totally work with him. So the CIA goes to him and says, look, we think you can take Iran. And what we think you can do is carve off the Arab part of Iran and just say that you're liberating it. And it's a nationalistic war. The reason we think you can take Iran is because they literally decapitated the Navy, the Air Force, and the Army. And they just don't have, they just came out of this revolution. It took place 2 years ago. They're in chaos. This is a perfect opportunity. And so Iraq makes the terrible mistake of actually believing the CIA and attacks Iran based on that faulty intelligence. So I have, in 2002, I did a battlefield tour of Khuzestan. And the goal of Iraq was to capture Abadan, and then from there expand its campaign and capture Dazful and Ahwaz. Because there's going to be some Persian speaker who's going to be mad at me for saying Ahwaz. Ahwaz is the Arabic, Ahvaz is the Persian. But Abadan was the jewel, the gem. It's where the heart of Iran's oil industry is. So if you capture it, you cripple Iran's economy, and it was going to be really painful for Iran to recover. So the Iraqi military captured Khorramshahr, which is to the north of Abadan, and their goal was to swing to the east and basically encircle the city from the east and then come back and attack the city. And they were doing this because they were trying to get around the Karun, which is the river that flows into Iraq and forms the Shatt al-Arab with the Tigris and the Euphrates. And his infantry got a certain distance, and then his tanks got a little bit further, and it turned out the Iranian military wasn't in the kind of shape that he had been led to believe, and they stopped him. And they never captured Abadan. They shelled it. They destroyed much of the oil refining capabilities inside Abadan, but they couldn't capture the city. Then the Iranian military pushed him back to the border, and what ended up happening was 8 years of trench warfare with nothing moving. It just eventually the Iranians captured Fao, which was the southern port city for Iraq. Um, but that was it. Like there was essentially no movement in the lines. It was very much like a World War One style war. They just dug in and blasted each other. Having said that, the United States was really keen on Iraq winning. So the United States was giving it weapons, it was giving it missiles, it was giving it gas, sarin gas, VX gas, mustard gas. We gave them anthrax. We loaded the Iraqis up with basically every banned chemical weapon and biological weapon. Um, and the Iraqis were definitely using gas. I'm unaware of them using anthrax, but they were 100% using gas weapons. Um, the person who took me on the battlefield tour was an artillery officer, and there was an island in the Shatt al-Arab that his Iranian unit had captured, and they were using it. They were to fire artillery into Iraq. And he said what happened was one day, because he was the commander, he wrote himself a leave, and the leave was for half a day. And he just literally, he had his car parked on the bank, so the ferry took him to the bank. He got in the car, he drove home, because his home was like a 2-hour drive away from where the battlefield was. He watched TV and had dinner with his wife and daughter, got back in the car, drove to the bank, and the ferry guy said, your unit's destroyed. And the guy's like, what do you mean? I've been gone for 6 hours. How did my unit get destroyed? And they said, it was gassed while you were gone, and everybody's dead. And this is the kind of warfare that the Iraqis were trying to use. Now, the reason Iraq was this desperate that it was using gas is the Iranians outnumbered them 3-1. So the only way Iraq could prevail in the war was if they fought harder, fought better. And man for man, the Iraqis definitely were a better soldier, but that was largely because of the equipment that the United States had given them. It wasn't because Iraqi morale was higher. If anything, Iranian morale was higher. The Iranians didn't have enough rifles. They didn't have enough boots. They were missing spare parts for their aircraft. The Iranian military was not in great shape, but it was in strong enough shape that it prevented the Iraqis from winning. And it was a disaster. The low numbers are 750,000 Iranians died and 250,000 Iraqis died over the course of the 8 years. It's probably double that. Iraq began a terror campaign where they would fire Scuds into Tehran in a Battle of Britain, London Blitz style terror campaign. And it definitely inflicted a bunch of terror, but of course all it did was bolster Iranian resolve to not lose the war. So it didn't work. Terror doesn't work. It's whether I bomb a city with a B-52 or slam it with a drone or a missile or strap bomb to my chest and run into a crowded space, it doesn't make people change their mind. If anything, it usually makes them even more determined to fight you. So it's just a dumb idea that we keep doing over and over and over again. Like, my God, freaking read a book. I don't get it. I don't get why people can't remember what happened. It's like collective amnesia. I know there's some people that remember, but clearly the policymakers aren't in that crowd. In any case, the Iran-Iraq war, as it devolves into this just grind where all it's doing is killing people, it starts to become increasingly clear neither side can win. Despite Iraq using gas weapons. Gas weapons aren't a very effective weapon. They're more of a terror weapon. Obviously, it took out my tour guide's artillery unit. I'm not saying it doesn't cause any harm, but when you compare it to conventional weapons, it's not any more effective. Biologicals, on the other hand, definitely are.